in the news today, if you've been listening to Abolitions, you would have heard news about something which has finally happened. Lots of people have been asking for this. Lincolnshire's Police and Crime Commissioner has apologised to the Chief Constable. Alan Hardwick has written to the Chief, Neil Rhodes, apologising for the distress caused last year. Last February, Mr Rhodes was suspended and then reinstated after he brought a legal challenge. Today's apology was made following a request from the policing panel that oversees the Lincolnshire Police and Crime Commissioner. Paul Prislak is the Vice Chairman of the Lincolnshire Police and Crime Panel. So let me ask you, Paul, is this what you were after? You wanted an apology. He has now apologised to Lincolnshire's Chief Constable. Are you satisfied?
Good afternoon, William. As far as the apology to the Chief Constable goes, the words are quite clear. My apology is sincere and unreserved, and that is appreciated, and we clearly hope that the relationship will work now for the benefit of policing in Lincolnshire. And
it was, sorry, just before we go, and it was an apology to the Chief Constable and his family, wasn't it, which was important about the whole experience and any anxiety, which he says was never my intention to make you go through all that. So that is a full apology to the Chief. So you're happy with that?
We're happy with that. I think where we are slightly concerned is that we also requested that the Police and Crime Commissioner apologised to the people of Lincolnshire for the costs involved. We do appreciate that many of the costs were unavoidable. The advice was needed on certain issues, but the report is quite clear that the whole episode could have been cut short and saved a lot of those costs. And again, if I quote his words, I'm very happy to apologise to anyone who feels an apology is deserved. We would like to have seen him offer an apology rather than offer to apologise to anyone who feels an apology is deserved.
And just to explain the costs, we're talking about £165,000 plus now, are we?
Certainly in that region. The final costs aren't known, but there'll be a little more than that, yes.
And this is money from the taxpayer.
Yes.
He points out, Alan Hardwick, the Police and Crime Commissioner, as you say, points out in a letter to the Police and Crime Panel that, as you mentioned, this was something, the whole thing centres around something that needed to be looked at, needed to be investigated. Didn't need to go in this direction, but it needed to be investigated. So that would have there would be costs involved in that, wouldn't there?
There would certainly have been costs, but the feeling of the panel was that the issue could have been dealt with sooner, and, for example, save the costs of maybe a judicial review. So not all the costs were avoidable, but certainly a good proportion of the costs were avoidable, and it would be nice if the PCC would apologise to the people of Lincolnshire. The people of Lincolnshire, of course, have got the option, but when it comes of a ballot box, but that's the only sanction really that's available to the people of Lincolnshire.
So when you say it would have been nice, is that it? Are you just going to say, well, it would have been nice if he'd done this, but you know that's what he's done, so we'll move on? Are you going back to him and saying, look, what we asked you to do was to fully apologise to the people of Lincolnshire? You haven't done that.
I think that's what the panel may well decide, but I speak as one member of the panel, and I would certainly wish to go back to him and say, look, close the book completely, don't leave that door ajar, apologise to the people of Lincolnshire, and let's get on with policing Lincolnshire.
It's interesting, though, we've had a few different comments this afternoon talking about this. Let's just read this from Bill. Bill in Grantham says, I'm disappointed that the Police and Crime Panel won't let this apology thing go. This Lincolnshire resident doesn't want or need an apology from Mr Hardwick. He just wants the whole matter to be put to bed. I hope you can convey that sentiment later. And there certainly is a feeling that this has just gone on so long, we just want to be finished with it all.
I have a lot of sympathy with that feeling, and if we'd had that apology to the people of Lincolnshire, the taxpayers of Lincolnshire, it would be put to bed. As I say, I think it's for the panel to decide now whether to go back and say, look, we did suggest, or we did recommend you apologise to the people of Lincolnshire. You haven't actually done so. How about doing it and putting it to bed?
And what if he turns around and says no?
I think we're then somewhat between a rock and a hard place. I think the whole Police and Crime Commissioner and the Police and Crime Panel was put together, or the Police and Crime Panel certainly was put together in haste by government, and perhaps the whole setup needs to be reviewed as to what powers are and aren't available to the Police and Crime Panel.
Well, that's why this whole thing is so much more than just about an apology, isn't it? And that's why other people outside Lincolnshire are looking at what's happening, because they're looking at what powers you have, what you can and can't do, and this happens to be the example that is being picked up nationally.
Absolutely, and it's the talk wherever you go, talking policing issues, and there are recommendations in our report to the Home Office, as well as to the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Police and Crime Panel, in addition to the recommendations to the Police and Crime Commissioner.
You also asked him, when the report came out, you asked him to get in touch and tell you that he had accepted or otherwise all the recommendations that came out of the report. Now, I think your deadline for that was something like the 4th of April, so that's something else you would be expecting to get, is it?
The Police and Crime Commissioner has indicated that he will accept the recommendations and will come back to us with the plan, I think you're right, by April, sometime date in April.
A couple of other comments. Let me let you hear these. William, this is Jen. Why doesn't Alan Hardwick do the decent thing? First come on air or television or Look North or the radio to apologise to Lincolnshire people and then resign. The sooner the better. He's an embarrassment to us all. Here's another message. William, nobody should be made to apologise for doing something they sincerely believe to be the right course of action. Alan Hardwick should tell the crime panel to go, actually says, should tell the crime panel to go and do one. But, you know, he does believe all the way through this that he did the right thing, doesn't he?
Again, the report clearly states where there were options to review what was going on and change course. And it's that question, and yes, it's judgment. I'm quite sure he did what he believed was right, and he was right to investigate a complaint. It's how it was investigated and whether or not the suspension was necessary.
Okay.
They all clearly set out in that report.
Okay, so just to be clear where we are with this at the moment, you're happy with the apology to the Chief Constable. You're not happy that the Police Commissioner hasn't made a full apology to the people of Lincolnshire for that waste, in your opinion, of taxpayers' money. And
yes.
you will now go back as a panel and talk about what you will do about that.
Correct. We will look to see what options are available to us, and we'll no doubt be communicating back to the PCC as and when we meet.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. Paul Prislak is the Vice Chairman of Lincolnshire's Police and Crime Panel. 4:30 on BBC Radio.